What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with the overall market as we have a potential bull flag panning out right now, which could suggest more upside for the market temporarily. But I believe that the market's going to be forming a top within 1 week from now. By early August, there should be a top in the markets. And then we're going to be still looking for a significant pullback. As crazy as that sounds, I still believe that's what's going to likely happen. I'm going to break down exactly why that is based off what Jerome Powell just said and other significant pieces of data. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or sign up with my QR code that's right over here. Moomoo is an amazing global brokerage that consists of many exclusive offers. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000 and you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. You also qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends at the end of July in just 1 day from now, so there's only 1 day left. Another benefit of signing up is that you guys are going to qualify for free data to look at order flow and what's happening with the options chains for your favorite stocks and ETFs. So check out my link down below. The offer ends once again in just 1 day. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So the market saw a lot of trickery today, okay? Jerome Powell was giving a speech and he caused the market to tank. SPY went from almost 638 all the way down to 631, a 7 points dump on SPY. That was almost a 1% dump. And then we made a full V-shaped recovery in the after hours after we got big tech earnings. Now, this tells us that for now, there are still buyers stepping in and they could still push the market higher. And we could still see new all-time highs on SPY and the QQQ, on ES, NQ, and many other futures. We're still bullish for now. July is not over yet. Okay, we're almost at the end of July. But when you look at historical data, what typically happens is July is one of the strongest months of the year. And then August and September is when the market starts to sell off. Historically, that is when we start to see a lot more bears stepping in. And I think there's a very good chance it's going to happen this year again, based off what I've seen in my previous videos. I did go over many reasons. So just look at my August pullback videos historically. And then simultaneously, there's other reasons for why I think that, right? Because of what the Fed is telling us, with the tariffs coming into play, and many other reasons. So could we rally more? Yeah, we could try to push a little bit higher. I could still see that. Okay, so we're still bullish for now, but I don't think the move is going to last forever. Within 1 week, we should be done with the rally. And then I do expect a big pivot. I do think there's a very, very good chance we're going to be looking for a pullback soon. So I think the QQQ is going to continue to break all-time highs. We should gap up and try to go a bit higher. But then we're going to be forming a giant gap when we open. And I also think that what's happening is these market makers are squeezing shorts. They're tricking the bears. They're trying to turn everyone into massive bulls. They want you to be a bull. They want me to be a bull, so that we all start going long. And that's exactly when they're going to tank this thing back down, right? There's endless gaps left to fill on SPY. There's a gap over here at 628. There's another gap over here. There's one over here at 611. There's another one over here at 607. There's another one here down at 600. These gaps are going to fill soon, guys. I do believe it. And I think that this is going to be the final rally that's coming. And then we're going to be getting ready for a bigger pivot. So why am I saying this? Well, the first thing we have to talk about is Jerome Powell. And then I'm going to talk about what President Trump just said that could also contribute to why there was going to be some kind of sell-off. Jerome Powell caused the market to sell off. We saw our treasury yields start to go up because Jerome Powell was saying that it's too soon to say whether the central banks are going to be cutting interest rates for September. And this spooked the markets, okay? This caused the markets to panic. Why? Because before, the market thought there was over a 60% chance the Fed was going to cut in September. The market was pricing in a cut in September. Now, we're not too sure about that. Now there's only a 45% chance it's going to happen after what Jerome Powell just said. So why is he so uncertain? The first thing is that Jerome Powell is saying the Fed has a dual mandate. They're going to be managing employment and also inflation. They're going to be very, very careful with that. Jerome Powell was asked lots of questions about his relationship with President Trump, what he thinks of what President Trump is saying, and he refused to comment on that, but he made it very, very clear that there are inflationary risks, and he talked about specifically that tariffs could cause higher inflation. He mentioned that, for example, if you look at what happened in 2018, we saw the prices of washing machines go up because of tariffs that were affecting their components. And then you also had dryer prices going up because, once again, they had not only sticky prices, but the trend followed as people typically buy them together, and then simultaneously it affects the way at which businesses price things. So he's implying that when businesses have more costs because of the tariffs, they don't want their profits to go down too much. So they're going to continue to increase prices. And it's going to be a great excuse, right? The tariffs are going up, blame the tariffs. They're going to increase prices even more. That's what Jerome Powell is telling us. On top of this, Jerome Powell said that we're making inflationary progress for the longer term, but for the short term, there is some uncertainty. We can't say if this is going to be a one-time inflationary increase or not, because when you look at the data, we're seeing a sharp increase right over here in all items CPI. And then with core, it went up just a little bit. We're going to see if this continues or not. So the Fed has to manage this data. Also, Jerome Powell is going to make the argument that, look, if we have a hot economy, if the economy is able to handle these higher interest rates, they have no reason to just cut for no reason if we still have these inflationary risks. So when he was asked about what's it going to take for you guys to cut in September, Powell said he doesn't know. He's saying he doesn't know what's going to happen. We have to wait and see what happens with the data. Instead of calling him too late Powell, which, you could call him that, but I think a good name for him is going to be Mr. Uncertainty. He's Mr. Uncertain. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He keeps saying we have to wait and see, we have to wait and see, we have to wait and see what the data tells us. And that really spooked the markets. He also talked about the possibility of the Fed having to do what's necessary and learn from history, because there were lots of instances where the Fed was too late. They cut way too late to the point where they had to scramble to cut rates too fast. They had to do that because of the economy breaking, and he wants to avoid that from happening. So he does not want to see the economy start breaking. He doesn't want to cut rates too fast or too early. And he also mentioned that we should be grateful that they're not considering increasing rates right now. So that is something else he said that spooked the markets. So it's very important stuff, guys. I mean, with Jerome Powell, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. He was also talking about and being asked about the next unemployment numbers coming out for Friday. He's not really giving us information about that, but he is saying that they have to wait and see how that goes. And that's, that alone is not going to be enough. They have to wait and see what happens with the next couple of inflationary numbers before making their decisions. So this opens the possibility that the Fed may have to keep rates higher for longer if we start to see more inflation and if the tariffs start affecting things. I'm going to break down exactly why that's a possibility after what President Trump just said. So with that being said, Jerome Powell basically said the same stuff he typically says. For the most part, just the same old speech he gives. But then, he was just basically telling us that the Fed does not guarantee a cut for September. There's a lot of uncertainty about that. And we have to wait and see what happens with their data for the dual mandate, which is still going to be maintained. He's very confident the long term is going to be fine, but for the short term, there is uncertainty, and the market did not like. That's why we tanked about 7-8 points today on SPY, only to get bought back up in the after hours. So why did the market tank and get bought back up? Well, we tanked because now the market's not certain about September. There's now only about a 45% chance we get a cut instead of 60% chance, and that's why the market dipped. But then we bounced after we got big tech earnings. Meta and Microsoft are exploding. And then tomorrow we also have Apple and Amazon announcing earnings, but Meta and Microsoft have saved the day. Meta did very, very well. They're crediting AI for boosting their results. Very strong performances this quarter, thanks to AI unlocking greater efficiency and great growth. They absolutely smashed the EPS. Okay, $7.14 a share versus $5.88 expected. They smashed revenue expectations at $47.5 billion above the $44.8 billion expectation, up 22% year over year. They also spent more money on AI development, once again pushing superintelligence for their next projects, and they're up like crazy. Good guidance as well. They raised their guidance. Great news, guys. Great job by Meta. Microsoft is also on fire. Their EPS, once again, was a beat. Good EPS, good revenue beating expectations. Their intelligent cloud division made $29.88 billion. Great growth. And once again, they're talking about how they're going to continue to develop what's necessary for their digital assets. And they're going to continue to grow with good guidance. So Meta and Microsoft, they killed it. They absolutely killed it. They crushed it. The share prices are both up over 10%. That's why the market's exploding in the after hours. Now, why might the market sell off later on? So yeah, we're going to rally for now, but I'm telling you, the rally may only last another week because of seasonality. That's the first factor. Seasonality tends to kick in August/September, and historically, the market does sell off during that period. Another reasoning is that the market's rallied so hard without any sort of like pullback. And then there's a lot of unfilled gaps. And then we have a lot of other factors, such as the data coming out. We have very important unemployment numbers coming out for Friday. And then another big factor is going to be President Trump's tariffs. So President Trump has been saying that he's not going to be extending the deadline. He's not going to be extending any deadlines. He's saying that the deadlines are here to stay and they're going to be very, very firm. Then President Trump announced that he wants to increase tariffs on India to 25%. He wants to impose a 25% tariff on India plus a penalty because they are once again getting lots of weapons from Russia, and he's not really happy about that. He also mentioned that India is once again doing relatively little business with the US because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and it's been very, very strenuous and obnoxious. And he's saying that once again, he's going to be increasing tariffs on India. He also said he wants to increase tariffs to 50% on Brazil with some exemptions. Then he talked about a 50% tariff on copper. That's going to be including pipes, wires, cables, and other electrical components. That's going to be raising a lot of prices. We had Jerome Powell also talk about that. And then he also mentioned that he wants to increase tariffs on different commodities. We have graphite, we have other steel and aluminum imports, we have automotives. A lot of tariffs are going to be coming, guys. So you have to be very, very careful. Now, I'm not here to say the tariffs are bad. Please do not interpret it that way. The tariffs are good and bad. The good is that they're going to be raising a lot of money for the US, and President Trump is hoping that he can give away rebates to Americans from them. So that is some good news. But then, the bad news is that when you start imposing these higher tariffs, if they do end up lasting, whether it's a couple of weeks, a couple of months, until we get some new deals, or if they last years, of course, there's going to be a lot of economic effects of those, right? It's going to be affecting employment. It's going to be affecting prices. It's going to be affecting all sorts of different things, right? So you have to be prepared for the trade-off. There's going to be some good, some bad that comes from the tariffs. And some of the bad stuff hasn't been fully priced into the markets yet. You could argue that. So keep that in mind, especially if we start to see a big increase in prices, which delays the Fed's progress. That could be a bit more negative for the markets. The market was expecting a big cut in September. We're not ready for that yet. So could the market rally more? Yes, we're going to likely rally higher, but just temporarily, just a couple more days, in my opinion. I think within a week, we're going to be done with the rally. And because of President Trump's tariffs, I think that could be one factor causing fear because of some inflationary data coming out, employment numbers, and based off what the Fed just said, the employment numbers will cause a lot more volatility. And then seasonality, which is also going to likely kick in. All those factors will likely cause the market to slow down. When you look at SPY, for example, we have a very large bearish divergence. We have a triple bearish divergence still developing, especially if we end up hitting these highs again. The divergence remains, which tells us that this rally is not going to likely last forever. So we have a bull flag on SPY. Looking at this from a technical standpoint, we're just going to focus on technicals. We have a very, very nice looking flag right here. So right here, you guys can see this is going to be like our potential target, this like area up here. And we're going to see if we form a top around that zone. Going back, we have this flag that's forming like this. We could try to go a bit higher. I do think we gap up and try to go for all-time highs on SPY, and we're going to see if there's a divergence forming, if we break the all-time high or not. The QQQ is already breaking all-time highs, so I'm not sure about SPY. And then I do believe eventually we're going to be forming a top, so whether we go a little higher or not, there's going to be some kind of top off this bearish divergence. And once the big month of August comes, whether it's the unemployment numbers or whatever factor it is, the tariffs, I do think we're going to eventually take out these lows. There's going to be a big pullback coming, and we're going to start filling a lot of these gaps. Now, if you want to be a bear, you want to see SPY fill at basically 634. If you want to be a bull, you want to see us hold above 640. I think it's going to be both. First, we're going to try to push for 640, hold up. We're going to gap up tomorrow. But then as time goes on, there's going to be a pivot and we're going to eventually turn back down and do be ready for a big downside move once we get to August. I do still anticipate that. That's what I'm seeing so far on the charts. The QQQ is bullish. Why is it bullish? Because we're making higher highs, higher lows. We're riding these EMAs higher. We're just bouncing off our EMAs. So see how it's riding the green line up? It's bullish, very, very bullish. We're going to be looking for an attempt to get to about 575 to 576. I think the triple Q gaps up tomorrow, goes a bit higher. But once we go higher, I don't expect us to go way higher. I think we climb a little bit higher. We'll see what happens with tech earnings. But then eventually we're going to be forming a top soon. And then we also happen to have, these bearish divergences developing. If you look at the chart, we have a large, this is like a triple bearish divergence, I believe right here. There's a triple bearish divergence on the QQQ. These typically suggest that the top is not going to last forever. We're not just going to keep climbing like this. We're going to climb for a little bit more. And then eventually there's going to be some kind of pullback in August, and we're going to eventually take out these lows. Once we get to like the first week of August, I do expect this to kind of come back down. So keep that in mind, guys. That's what I think is going to likely happen. If we lose 568, we're looking for a bigger decline. If we break 575, we're continuing to be bullish. I think we push for 575 or so and maybe go a little higher, but then we're going to be forming a top. There's going to be a top coming, and we're looking for a big pullback the closer we get to August. Now, the IWM is an exception. This is looking weaker. Notice that it wasn't able to bounce with tech because tech doesn't affect it as much. We need to get back above 223 to really rebound. If we can't, we're looking for some consolidation tomorrow, then a dip towards 216 eventually. So keep that in mind. ES is going to gap up. I'm going to be looking for an attempt to test these highs up here towards like 64.50. We'll see if we break all-time highs or not. If we don't, there's going to be a top forming within a week. Then we're looking for a move back down, and we're going to take out the low of the day. I do believe that in August. NQ should gap up, might try to go a little bit higher with the tech earnings. We'll see if Apple's earnings can help this pump or not. And then we're going to be looking for a pivot back down to 23,500 or below and new lows. Bitcoin is in the middle. Same thing with Bitcoin. There's going to be a pullback coming to Bitcoin. It's just kind of choppy right here. Could be looking for essentially 118,000 before it starts to pivot back down towards 115,000. Tesla's looking a little bit weak here. Notice that we're still in this consolidation phase going back and forth. We're still favoring the downside direction, though. We're still favoring an attempt to dip. I think we could be retesting the low 300s very soon. So tomorrow we could try to push higher and kind of consolidate, but I do believe we're going to be eventually dipping to the low 300s. Nvidia is pumping for now. We're going to be looking for an attempt for basically 185. So look for more upside, higher highs and higher lows. 185 plus is coming. We're going to see if it continues to break out. But once we hit 185, we could pivot back down towards 176. So please be very, very careful, at least for the time being. Apple's kind of weak right now, but it depends on earnings. We're going to see if earnings helps us bounce above 212 or if we turn back down. I am concerned about Apple's earnings because the tariffs are going to have an effect on them, and they're very dependent on China. So we're going to see what happens with China. But if Apple does continue to fall and 208 fails us, we could be looking for 205 or below, which could take us lower. Netflix is on a downtrend. We need to get back up at basically 1200. If not, we're going to be favoring 1150 or below. MSTR looks kind of choppy right here. I think we kind of chop around and reject, and we're going to likely be dipping towards the lower levels. I think we retest 400 to 405 and consolidate, then we could be dipping back down. Celsius is rejecting. We basically have support at 45.93. We'll see if we bounce off this or not to make a lower high before we continue to dip to 45. Supermicro is looking for basically 63 to 64 as our target. We'll see if we break this. Otherwise, there's a bearish divergence, and that could take us right back down to 57. Palantir's looking bullish. We're favoring basically 162, and we'll see if we reject or not. As of right now, we're favoring 162, and we're going to have to see how it goes. For Rivian, we have a double top right here. We're kind of dipping, so we have to see how this goes as well. And we're going to see if we get back above basically this 13.5 area. Otherwise, we're favoring 12.5 or below. SoFi is looking a bit more bullish. We're favoring basically 22.5. We could be pushing a bit higher. We're going to see if we reject or not, so give this the time it needs. AMD is looking a bit more bullish. We're going to be favoring basically 188, and we'll see if we reject or not. But for now, we're still favoring the upwards direction, so give this the time it needs. ARM is not looking too good. We got a big rejection here after the earnings that came out, so I think we could be retesting 147. It looks pretty weak here. Might be retesting 147.06 before it continues to fall. PayPal is kind of weak. We need to get back above 72. Otherwise, we're still favoring downside. We might be making our way down to 68. Coinbase is bouncing temporarily, but like I said before, it's just a temporary move. We still have this large head and shoulders. Could push for basically 392 before it consolidates and starts dipping lower for a head and shoulders. Amazon's bullish for now, but it depends on earnings. Earnings come out tomorrow. Could try to push for 238 to gap up, then it might slow down as time goes on like this, and we'll see if earnings launch this up or down. Be very, very careful with Amazon nonetheless. Meta will gap up, but keep in mind, typically when you gap up, we don't just like continue to rally for 800. We might slowly push a little higher for 790 to 800, then we could kind of turn beforehand. So we might not just break 800. We could slowly push higher like this, and then as time goes on, we just start to decline to fill this gap. So we could climb for 790 to 800, but then we might not break above 800. Could turn once we eventually hit those high levels, but expect a big gap up. Google's going to retest 194 to 190. We'll see how it goes. Microsoft should be basically retesting 565. It's about 570. Then we're going to see if it breaks or not. If not, we could turn. I do expect this to go a little higher though, so keep that in mind. DJT is looking kind of flat here, might bounce for 18.25 before it rejects. The VIX is going to be dumping towards these lows. We're going to see if it bounces or not, but I do think it's going to be forming some kind of divergence. There is a large bullish divergence forming on it, which suggests it's going to eventually get a breakout. The 10-year is kind of flat right now. It started to go up a bit because of the Fed, and then the dollar is looking bullish because of the Fed, and then crude is also pumping. So here's my opinion. Could the market squeeze tomorrow? Yep. We're going to likely try to get to all-time highs on SPY, and we're going to break all-time highs on the QQQ. We're already breaking them. So be prepared for more upside, guys. All-time highs, we're going to try to break them, then slowly push for like 640 if that breaks. Be prepared for all-time highs and a gap up. But then as time goes on, the market's going to form a top. And I don't think we're going to go much higher. I wouldn't be surprised if we go another like 5 points higher than that. So we could go a little higher. Yeah, we could be going for like the low 640s. But then I don't think SPY goes all the way up to 650. I'd be a little surprised if we go that high. And then we might go a little higher, but there's going to be a top forming. We're going to be forming a top within the next couple of trading days, within a week. And once the top is in, we have to get ready for the big pullback coming for August. I'm holding my word. I believe it's going to be coming. So let's be very, very patient. Play the charts in front of you. Know there's going to be some upside coming, but there's going to be a topping process. And we'll see how high we go. I do expect a couple more points higher, but then be prepared for the top. It is coming, guys, so be prepared. I still hold that view. Anyways, I'll be back tomorrow with another update. Until then, I wish you guys nothing but the best. I'll see you guys tomorrow before market open. Get ready for a gap up and a push in the markets, but then the top will be coming soon. All right? Thank you for listening, and peace out.